Alright, so these are my three flashcards that I'm going to be using, and let's roll. Hello, my name is Joseph Iscovici, and today I'm going to be presenting my informative speech. So you see these two animals here, right? Well, they're going to be our little couple for today. They're nice, they're sweet, everything's going well for them, but what if we take one of them away and they're separated? They have no means of communication. What do? Well, what we have here, cell phones. We give it to them, and now they have a means of communication with each other that will be very beneficial towards each other. So today, I'm going to be talking about the full use of cell phones in a relationship, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and the pros and cons behind it all. Now, using a cell phone can be very beneficial for you and your partner, but it's not all positive towards it. Before I get into the pros and cons, let's look into what you should do first. What you should do using a cell phone in a relationship and means of communication is to always communicate frequently and stay on top of things in order to have a lasting relationship. With cell phones, you really want to make sure that you're always communicating with your partner. That way, you don't feel left out, she doesn't feel left out, or he feels left out, whatever works. And you want to make sure that everything's good and fine. That way, it leads to a lasting relationship. According to the article "Mobile Phones in Romantic Relationships and the Dialect of Autonomy versus Connection" by Robert Durand, Lynn Kelly, and Theodore Taru, cell phones give freedom to relational partners to contact one another at any time. So what this means is that wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, you can always pick up your cell phone and just give your partner a call or a text or whatever you need to do. And it's instantaneous and it's very simple and easy to stay on top of. Although cell phones can be good and just fine at times, it can be damaging as well. So my next point is what you shouldn't do using a cell phone. Now, what you shouldn't do using a cell phone or a relationship is to never ignore your partner and don't always text them as a main means of communication. Make sure whenever you have a cell phone, this is most important, to never ever ignore them at all whatsoever. If you're busy, that's a different story. You can shoot them a text saying, "Hey, I'm busy." But if you're just flat out ignoring them and just don't care about communication, then that's going to lead to distrust and many issues with another person. According to the article "Partner Phubbing and Relationship Satisfaction Among Romantic Partners" by James Roberts and Meredith David, those with anxious attachment styles reported higher levels of cell phone conflict than those with less anxious attachments. What this means is people with high anxiety levels, if you're ignoring them while texting or calling or whatever, it's going to lead to a lot of anxiety for them and distrust and may end up breaking off the relationship very quickly. Now, on the other hand, you shouldn't always use text as a means of communication. It can be very risky, it's difficult to tell the tone sometimes, and sometimes it can lead to less connection between the two of you. So what you want to do is use either phone calls or video chats between one another. That way you can stay on top of things, and with video chats you have instantaneous face-to-face communication between each other without being in person with each other. So up next, now that we have finished the what you should do's and what you shouldn't do's, we're going to talk about the pros and cons between everything. So some of the pros of using a cell phone in communication is being able to talk whenever you want, wherever you want, and staying in touch. So cell phones are a magnificent tool to use for a relationship, and you can always stay on top of things and text each other, call each other, video chats, whatever. It's really simple and easy to use, and really you should be staying on top of things when using it. Now, with the cons, however, that's a different story. Some of the cons are the lack of in-person time and social interaction with each other. And I mean, too much cell phone communication can really damage a relationship, and may end in this very quick split if you're not on top of things, or they just feel left out or less communicated with you. According to the article, Competing Discourses and Meaning Making in Talk About Romantic Partners' Cell Phone Contact with Non-Persistent Others by Amy Miller-Ott and Lynn Kelly, it states that college students feel discourses of community, romance, control, and freedom. Now, what this means is that even higher level college students in their 20s don't feel as free and in control of what they want to do when they're just using their cell phones in a relationship, and that's not really good. Now that we've gone through over everything, let's reflect on what has been presented today. Even though cell phones can be really beneficial and useful in a relationship, like staying in touch and using video chats or calls or texts, it can be damaging to the relationship as well. If the other person doesn't feel as connected, it can lead to a drift and suddenly end. Even the article Gender and Age Differences in Cell Phone Etiquette and Use by Deborah Kirby Forgas, Ira Hyman, and Jesse Schreiber state that people are ending relationships with just a text message. So in order to have a long-lasting relationship with cell phones, you absolutely must be in control of talking with one another. You staying on top of the text messages and the cell calls and video chats, and make sure that you don't ignore them or leave them alone with anything, and make sure that everything is good and connected with each other. So now with these guys, they're doing all right. Why? Well, they're using their cell phones wisely. They're not just texting, they're using video calls. And of course, that leads to, well, them being closer with cell phones.